Your mind replays the same thoughts and emotions on a loop most days. This internal repetition is not a flaw, but a landscape of hidden patterns waiting to be understood. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently hold in thought." This ancient Stoic insight reveals a powerful truth. By learning to observe the nature of our own mental events, we can move from being carried by our patterns to guiding our own growth. This exploration will show you how to use Stoic pattern recognition as a practical tool for self-mastery. You will learn to identify the cycles of concern, evaluation, and longing that shape your days and discover how to reshape them with intention. We will consider the common pattern of irritation during a morning commute. The traffic jam is a fact. The feeling of frustration is a natural initial reaction, but then the pattern often unfolds. You might think, "This always happens to me," or "My whole day is affected now." With Stoic observation, you learn to notice that narrative as just that, a narrative. You see the thought, "This always happens," and you simply acknowledge its presence without fighting it or believing it. You watch the frustration like you would watch a cloud drift across the sky. It is there, but you are not the cloud. What about a recent moment when you felt a surge of disappointment or worry? If you had paused for just a breath, what was the specific thought that appeared right before the feeling took over? Was it a story about unfairness, a concern about not being enough, a pattern of predicting a difficult outcome? Observing that initial spark is how you begin to map the landscape of your own mind. What specific situations, words, or even times of day reliably steal your tranquility? This is not a search for blame, but a quest for clarity. The Stoics understood that peace of mind is not lost in a single dramatic event, but is eroded by small, repeated patterns of reaction. To reclaim it, we must first map the sources of our disquiet. This is the practical work of distinguishing what is within our control from what is not, a cornerstone of Stoic practice. We exhaust ourselves by trying to control external events, the words of others, or the flow of traffic, while neglecting the one thing we truly command, our own judgments and responses. Seneca captured this beautifully in his letters, observing that we are often more troubled by our anticipation of events than by the events themselves. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. This anticipatory anxiety is a powerful trigger, a pattern where we mentally rehearse conversations that may never happen or envision problems that never come to pass. Consider the modern pattern of reflexively checking your phone for news or social updates. The action itself is neutral, but the emotional spike that often follows, a mix of anxiety, comparison, or irritation, reveals a trigger. The external event is the information on the screen. The internal trigger is the automatic judgment that this information is a threat to your peace, that you must react to it, or that it defines your world in that moment. By mapping this, you see the pattern clearly. The content of the news is outside your control. Your compulsion to check it and the meaning you assign to it, however, are territories you can govern. Take a quiet moment and list your own top 3 recurring triggers. Perhaps it is a certain tone of voice used by a colleague, the sight of a crowded inbox first thing in the morning, or the quiet anxiety that surfaces late at night. Now place each one on a simple map, categorize them. Is this trigger something within my complete control, like my own intention for the day? Is it something partly within my influence, like the outcome of a project I am working on? Or is it entirely outside my control, like the weather or a comment made by a stranger? This act of mapping is not passive. It is the first active step in redesigning your inner world. Every emotional reaction begins with a swift, often unnoticed judgment. This is the critical moment the Stoics sought to master. the space between your first impression of an event and your full assent to that impression story. Your boss sends a brief, terse email and an immediate feeling of defensiveness arises. That feeling is not the email itself. It is your mind's rapid judgment that this tone is a personal slight, a sign of disapproval. The Stoic practice is to catch that judgment in midair and simply look at it before you accept it as truth. The philosopher Epictetus taught his students to say to every disturbing impression, "You are just an impression, and not at all the thing you pretend to be." Then examine it and test it by the rules you possess. This is the discipline of withholding assent. It is not about suppressing emotion. It is about interrupting the automatic pattern that links an external event directly to an internal storm. Think of a time you felt personally affected by a comment from a friend or colleague. The initial impression might have been, "They meant to disrespect me." The automatic pattern is to assent immediately, to fuel that story with more thoughts, and to feel the heat of frustration or the chill of disappointment. The Stoic alternative is to pause and question the impression itself. Is it absolutely true they intended disrespect? Could there be another explanation? Perhaps they were rushed or stressed or simply unaware of their tone. By creating this small space for inquiry, you break the chain. You move from being a passenger on a runaway emotional train to being the one who checks the tracks ahead. For the next day, I invite you to a simple but powerful exercise. Choose to pause for just 5 seconds before reacting to any minor annoyance. The coffee machine is broken, someone merges closely in traffic, a plan gets cancelled. In those 5 seconds of pure observation, do nothing but notice the first judgment that arises. Do not believe it, do not fight it, just watch it. You are not trying to change the world in that moment. You are changing your relationship to the automatic patterns that have been running your inner world for years. This is how you begin to rewrite the script. Stoicism teaches that growth is directional. We must first know our current coordinates. This ancient practice of self-examination is not about harsh self-criticism, but a clear-eyed and patient inventory of our inner landscape. The goal is to see our recurring patterns of character with the same objectivity we might use to observe the weather, identifying both the virtues that serve us and the habits that hold us back. Marcus Aurelius dedicated pages of his private journal to this very work, noting his own tendencies with remarkable patience. He would observe a pattern of irritation or haste, not to condemn himself, but to understand its origin and gently steer his character toward greater wisdom and justice. This is the heart of Stoic pattern recognition applied to our moral development. It transforms vague feelings of wanting to be better into a concrete map for the journey. A powerful way to begin this work is with a simple nightly practice. In the quiet moments before sleep, take just a few minutes to review your day. Note one instance where you consciously practiced a virtue, perhaps a moment of courage in a difficult conversation or an act of kindness when it was easier to be indifferent. Then, with the same neutral tone, note one recurring pattern that did not serve you, a tendency that appeared. This is not a list of shortcomings, but a catalogue of data points. Perhaps you noticed a pattern of defensiveness when receiving feedback, or an inclination toward envy when a colleague succeeded. By naming these patterns without judgment, you rob them of their power and gain the clarity needed to cultivate their opposites. If you were to name one character pattern you would most like to strengthen, what would it be? Is it the resilience to meet hardship with calm, the integrity to act justly even when no one is watching, or the wisdom to focus only on what is truly yours to control? Identifying this single point of focus gives your growth a direction, turning the abstract idea of self-improvement into a daily, lived practice. Our lives are shaped by countless tiny habits, most of which operate below our conscious radar. You wake up and reach for your phone without a thought. You feel a moment of restlessness and instantly open a social media app. these actions are not random. They follow a predictable loop, a neurological pattern of cue, routine, and reward that runs automatically in the background. Stoic mindfulness, what the ancients called attention, is the powerful tool that allows you to step into this automated process and redirect it. It is the light of your awareness that illuminates the cue, allowing you to consciously choose a new routine before the old one plays out. Seneca advised that we must be especially watchful over our beginnings, for it is through repeated acts that habits are quietly formed. He understood that the first spark of a habit is small and manageable, but if left alone, it grows into a pattern that is difficult to change. Consider the common pattern of reaching for your phone the moment you feel a pause in your day. The cue is the feeling of boredom or restlessness. The routine is the scroll through endless content. The reward is a temporary sense of distraction or connection. With Stoic attention, you can catch the cue itself. You notice the restlessness arise. Instead of being carried by the automatic impulse, you pause. You have now created a space of choice. In that space, you can consciously select a different routine. You could take 3 deep breaths and ask yourself a simple Stoic question: is this within my control? You could reach for a book instead, reading just a single page. The reward then transforms from a hollow distraction into a genuine moment of peace or learning. This week, I invite you to a single act of mindful intervention. Pick one automatic habit, perhaps the first check of your phone in the morning or the sigh of frustration in traffic. Your task is not to eliminate the habit, but to spot the cue and insert one moment of conscious choice. What small, thoughtful action could you slot into that space instead? This is how you begin to redesign the architecture of your day, one interrupted loop at a time. What do you find yourself constantly chasing, and what are you constantly running from? These two forces, desire and aversion, act like invisible currents beneath the surface of our daily choices. We are pulled toward comfort, praise, and security, and we push away from discomfort, criticism, and uncertainty. These patterns are so automatic that we rarely notice we are being guided by them at all. The Stoic teacher Epictetus pointed directly to this when he taught that the chief task in life is to distinguish between what is up to us and what is not. Our desires and aversions, he argued, must be carefully examined, for if you seek or avoid what is not within your own power, you will always be frustrated and disappointed. The pattern of chasing external validation is a perfect example. You share a thought online and find yourself returning again and again for encouraging responses. The wish for that outside approval is the engine of the pattern. Each return to the screen is a small act of chasing, but the response you receive is not truly up to you. It is an external, fickle measure. When you link your sense of worth to it, you hand over your inner calm to the shifting winds of an unseen process. The Stoic alternative is not to reject social connection, but to redirect the desire inward. The goal shifts from seeking validation from others to acting with integrity because it is the right thing to do. The reward becomes the act itself, the knowledge that you expressed something true, regardless of the outside reaction. This realignment is how you break the pattern. Think about one desire you felt today. Perhaps it was the wish for a perfectly quiet afternoon or for a particular word of recognition from your manager. Now think of one thing you actively set aside, maybe a challenging conversation or a tedious task. Take a moment and write these 2 things down. Then, with a calm and curious mind, ask yourself a simple question about each one. Is this thing truly necessary for me to live a good and meaningful life? The answer will often surprise you, revealing how much energy you spend moving toward or away from things that have little to do with your own inner character. This act of writing and questioning is not just reflection. It is the first step in reclaiming your own power from these deep-seated patterns. History does not repeat itself, but our interpretations of fortune and misfortune certainly do. We fall into a predictable rhythm, labeling an unexpected check as a stroke of good luck and a sudden obstacle as a piece of bad luck. This cycle of naming events is one of the most persistent patterns in our inner world. The Stoics proposed a radical shift in this pattern. They saw the events of life not as inherently good or bad, but as raw material, indifferent in themselves, waiting for our character to give them meaning through our use of them. It is not what happens to you, but how you work with what happens that defines your journey. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius framed this with powerful clarity when he wrote that the obstacle in the path becomes the path itself. He noted that within every barrier lies an opportunity to strengthen a virtue, if only we have the eyes to see it. This is the core of breaking the old pattern of judgment. Imagine a project you have poured your energy into suddenly falling apart. The automatic, well-worn pattern is to see this as a setback, a challenge that redirects your course. The story you might tell yourself is one of redirection and learning, but the Stoic pattern interrupts this narrative. It asks you to see the same event not as a wall, but as a door. The project that did not go as planned is no longer a verdict on your ability. It is now the training ground for resilience. It is the chance to practice accepting what you cannot change. It is the raw material for cultivating patience as you begin again. This single shift in perspective transforms the entire experience from something that happens to you into something you work with. Think of a recent shift in your own life, perhaps a plan that was cancelled or a goal that seemed to move further away. For a moment, set aside the initial label of disappointment. Ask yourself, what specific virtue did this situation invite me to practice? Did it call for courage to face the new reality? Did it require patience to endure the delay without frustration? Or did it demand the wisdom to see a different path forward? By reframing the event as a training ground, you cease to be a passenger of fortune and become a student of life itself. Procrastination is often just a pattern of misplaced priority and a fear of the effort required. We delay not because the task itself is impossible, but because we have built up a story about its difficulty in our minds. The Stoic remedy for this deeply ingrained pattern is to dissolve the daunting future into a series of manageable present moments. Seneca observed that we often struggle most from the habit of postponing our lives, writing that life is long if you know how to use it. The problem is not a lack of time, but a pattern of deferring what is essential to a tomorrow that is not guaranteed. This is a misalignment of our desires, where we choose the fleeting comfort of avoidance over the lasting satisfaction of a duty fulfilled. Consider the pattern of delaying a difficult but necessary conversation. The mind spins stories of potential conflict, crafting elaborate scenarios of everything that could go wrong. This mental rehearsal for a future that may never happen is the source of the paralysis. The Stoic practice interrupts this by asking you to focus not on the entire conversation, but on the absolute smallest action you can take right now. That action is not to have the perfect discussion. It is to write the first sentence of what you want to say. It is to send a simple message asking for a brief meeting. By breaking the monolithic task into a single, immediate step, you reclaim the present moment from the tyranny of a fearful future. You shift your focus from an outcome you cannot entirely control to an action you can perform with integrity here and now. What is one task you have been quietly avoiding? It might be a work project, a household chore, or a personal goal. Do not think about finishing it. That thought is what fuels the pattern of procrastination. Instead, identify the absolute first, tiny step. Is it opening a document and writing one sentence? Is it clearing a single surface? Is it spending just 5 minutes on the first part? Commit to performing that one small action today. This is how you rewire the pattern of aversion, replacing the fear of a distant mountain with the simple, confident act of taking the first step on the path. The most impactful patterns are the ones we design for ourselves, especially at the day's bookends. Before the rush of obligations begins and after the noise of the world fades, we have a quiet opportunity to build a structure for our own growth. The Stoics were masters of this deliberate design, using the first and last moments of the day not as passive transitions, but as active practices in shaping their inner world. Marcus Aurelius began his mornings with written reminders of the challenges he would likely face, not to dread the day, but to prepare his character to meet it with calm and purpose. He would tell himself, "You will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, but I cannot be angry with them, for we are made for cooperation." This was his morning preparation, a mental rehearsal for virtue. In the evening, he would return to his journal for a quiet review, asking himself gentle but probing questions. Where did I go wrong? What did I do that was aligned with my nature? This was not a harsh critique, but a patient sorting of the day's events, a way to learn from his own patterns. Seneca, too, wrote of his evening practice, examining his entire day and going over his own actions and words to hide nothing from himself and pass nothing by. This daily rhythm of preparation and reflection transforms abstract philosophy into a lived reality. A simple morning pattern can be just 5 minutes of quiet. Before you reach for any screen, sit and contemplate one potential challenge the day might bring. It could be a difficult conversation or a tedious task. Then ask yourself a single Stoic question: what virtue will this situation ask of me? Will it require patience, courage, or perhaps restraint? This frames the coming event not as a threat but as a training ground. In the evening, your pattern can be even simpler. As you prepare for rest, review just one action from your day. Did you act with integrity in a small moment? Was there an instance where an old pattern of irritation surfaced? Observe it without judgment, as if you were collecting data on your own growth. This consistent rhythm turns each day into a deliberate step forward. What one small, intentional ritual could you design for your own morning or evening? It does not need to be long or complex. It could be a single deep breath while considering the day ahead, or one sentence written in a notebook before sleep. Choose one Stoic principle, like focusing on what is within your control, and build a tiny ritual around it. This is how you architect a life of purpose, one conscious day at a time. How much of your mental energy is spent anticipating, receiving, or reacting to the opinions of others? This dance between praise and blame is one of the most persistent social patterns we engage in, a rhythm that can dictate our mood and self-worth from one moment to the next. The Stoics identified this pattern as a primary source of inner turmoil, a constant outsourcing of our value to an external world we cannot control. When your mood soars with a compliment and plummets with a criticism, you have handed the reins of your inner world to someone else. The Stoic practice is to break this cycle by redirecting the standard of judgment from external opinion to internal virtue. The philosopher Epictetus offered a powerful tool for this shift, reminding us that if anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone." He points to a deeper truth: an insult or a piece of praise only affects us if we accept its story about who we are. The event itself, the words spoken, are just sounds in the air. The difficulty comes from our judgment that we have been lessened. Consider the modern pattern of sharing an idea online and then compulsively checking for the validation of likes and comments. The external event is the number on a screen. The internal pattern is the story you tell yourself, that this number measures your worth or the value of your thought. The Stoic alternative is to perform the action with integrity, to share something you believe is true or helpful, and then to release it. The reward shifts from the external validation of a response to the internal satisfaction of having acted in alignment with your principles. The action itself becomes the entire point. Can you recall a recent time when praise lifted your mood or blame cast a shadow over your day? For a moment, revisit that feeling. Now, what would it feel like to be free of that pattern, to receive both praise and blame with the same calm acknowledgement, knowing that your worth is not a fluctuating metric but a constant practice of your own character? Worry is a debt we pay on a fortune we may never inherit. This pattern of anxious future tripping is a mental habit of engaging with phantoms, with stories we write about tomorrow that may never come to pass. The Stoics identified this as a profound misdirection of our energy, because the present moment is the only realm where we can ever truly act. In one of his letters, Seneca observed that we are often more tormented by the fear of what may happen than by the events themselves. We suffer in advance, paying the emotional price for a future that remains entirely imaginary. This worry is a pattern of living in a time that does not yet exist, draining the power from the only time that does, the here and now. Consider the common pattern of lying awake at night, your mind racing through every possible thing that could go wrong in an upcoming presentation. You rehearse stumbles, imagine critical faces, and feel the heat of embarrassment for a performance that has not even occurred. The Stoic practice is to gently interrupt this pattern by grounding yourself firmly in the reality of your current moment. You are not in the meeting room. You are in your bed. The presentation is not happening now. The only real thing is your breath, the feeling of the sheets, the quiet of the room. By anchoring your awareness in the present, you pull your mind back from its phantom rehearsal and into the only place where peace can actually be found. This is not about avoiding preparation, but about refusing to pay the emotional cost for a future you cannot control. Take a moment and bring to mind your single biggest worry right now. Now take out a piece of paper and write it down in a single sentence. Look at that sentence carefully. With a calm and steady hand, draw a line through every single part of that worry that is not about the present moment. The fear of a future outcome, the dread of a potential conversation, the anxiety about an event next week, cross it all out. What you have left is likely very small, perhaps nothing at all. This simple act reveals a profound truth, that the weight you carry is almost always for a future that is not yet real. By recognizing this pattern, you can choose to stop paying the debt and start living in the only currency you truly possess, the present. Resentment is like drinking something bitter and waiting for someone else to feel its effects. This powerful image captures the draining cycle of holding onto past hurts, a pattern where we endlessly revisit an old disagreement or a moment of unfairness, hoping the memory will somehow affect the one who caused it. Yet the only person truly affected is the one who continues to return to that bitter cup. The Stoics saw this pattern clearly. They understood that resentment is not a justified response to another, but a self-created weight that keeps us anchored to what has already happened. To break this cycle, we must shift our focus from another person's actions to our own inner strength and our shared nature as human beings. Marcus Aurelius offered a profound reflection on this, writing in his private journal, "When people act in ways that feel hurtful, ask yourself what good or harm they thought would come of it. If you understand that, you will feel a sense of perspective rather than anger, for you will see that they were mistaken, that they were unaware of what is truly meaningful." He is not asking you to overlook difficult behavior, but to see it for what it is, a form of misunderstanding. The person who acts unjustly is, from this perspective, acting against their own inner truth and their own well-being. They are confused, unaware of a clearer way. This point of view does not dismiss the discomfort you felt, but it reframes the entire experience. It moves the situation from a personal wound to a common human mistake. This shift is how you break the pattern. Consider the mental habit of replaying an old argument, feeling the warmth of frustration rise each time you revisit the words that were spoken. The pattern is the repetition itself. The Stoic practice to interrupt this is disarmingly simple yet deeply challenging. It is to consciously wish that person well. In the moment you feel the old hurt surface, pause and silently offer a thought for their journey or their own path toward clarity. This is not for their sake, but for yours. It is an active recalibration of your own spirit, a deliberate choice to release the bitterness from your system. It reclaims the landscape of your own mind. Is there one person you quietly hold a sense of old hurt toward, perhaps for a remark made long ago or a choice that touched your life? Today, I invite you to a single act of liberation. When that person comes to mind, do not replay the story. Instead, practice a moment of perspective. Acknowledge that they, like you, are a human being capable of missteps and acting from their own unique viewpoint. This one small shift does not change what happened, but it can begin to heal the pattern that keeps the past alive within you. When you look at the lives of others, are you measuring their highlight reel against your behind the scenes? This is the quiet, draining pattern of comparison, a mental habit that convinces you everyone else is winning a race you never signed up for. Envy is not a personal failing, but a signal that you have placed your sense of worth on an external stage, measuring your progress by a script you did not write. The Stoic teacher Epictetus offered a profound redirection for this pattern when he taught that we must not seek to have things happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do. This is not about passive acceptance, but about an active realignment of your desires. It means shifting your focus from wanting others to have less, to wanting your own character to have more integrity, more resilience, more growth. Your only true competition is the person you were yesterday. Consider the modern ritual of scrolling through a social media feed. You see a cascade of achievements, perfect moments, and celebrated milestones. The automatic pattern is to compare your own unedited reality to this curated display, and a feeling of lack or insufficiency often follows. This is envy in its digital form. The Stoic practice is to catch this pattern in the moment. When you feel that pang, use it as a trigger not for self-criticism, but for a conscious act of refocusing. Close the app and open a notes page or a small journal. This becomes your personal virtue ledger. Instead of cataloging what others have, you document your own subtle progress. Note one small way you practiced patience today, or a moment you chose courage over comfort. You are no longer looking sideways at someone else's path. You are looking directly at your own. Take a quiet moment now and list 3 specific ways you have grown in the last month, entirely independent of anyone else's achievements. Perhaps you became a better listener, managed a moment of frustration with more grace, or finally started that project you had been putting off. This simple list is your tangible evidence of progress, a mirror that reflects your own journey, reminding you that the only measure that truly matters is the distance you have traveled from your own starting point. Your body keeps a meticulous record of your mental and emotional state, if you know how to read it. That knot in your stomach before a difficult meeting, the tightness in your shoulders after a long day, these are not random glitches. They are the physical language of your inner world, patterns of sensation that offer a direct line to your current state of being. The Stoics understood this profound connection. They saw the care of the body not as a separate pursuit from philosophy, but as an essential part of it, a practice in listening to the needs of your nature. The teacher Musonius Rufus taught that physical training should be valued for the virtues it cultivates, like endurance and discipline, and for the way it teaches us to recognize our own limits and capacities. This is not about building a perfect physique, but about developing a respectful dialogue with the vessel that carries your character through the world. Consider the common pattern of a tension headache building throughout a stressful afternoon. The automatic reaction is often to see it as an inconvenience, something to be eased or gently worked through. The Stoic approach invites a different pattern. It asks you to see that headache not as a problem but as a messenger. The sensation is information. It is your body's way of saying that your mind has been held in a state of high alert for too long. Instead of resisting the signal, you can learn to heed it. The moment you feel that familiar pressure begin to form, you have a choice. that sensation becomes your cue, not for frustration, but for a deliberate pause. It is a reminder to step away from the screen, to take 5 slow, deep breaths, or to walk for just a few minutes without any destination. You are not just managing a headache. You are responding to a pattern, using a physical cue to practice the virtue of moderation and reclaim a moment of calm. What is one physical sensation you routinely overlook or quickly dismiss? It might be the shallow breath you hold when concentrating, the restless tapping of your foot when impatient, or the heavy feeling of fatigue that you gently move past. For the next day, choose just one of these sensations to observe with curiosity. Let that feeling become your personal signal, a gentle reminder to pause for a single breath and ask a simple question. What is my body trying to tell me about my mind in this moment? This small act of listening transforms a physical pattern from a mere symptom into a powerful tool for self-direction. Motivation is a fickle guest. Discipline is the permanent resident of a Stoic life. This is the fundamental shift in how we approach our daily duties and long-term goals. We often wait for a surge of inspiration to carry us forward, mistaking that emotional spark for the true engine of progress. The Stoics understood that feelings are as changeable as the weather, and building a meaningful life on such an unstable foundation is a recipe for inconsistency. They chose instead to anchor their actions in something far more reliable, a reasoned commitment to their purpose and their role, regardless of the inner climate of the moment. Marcus Aurelius framed this with stark clarity in his private writings, reminding himself at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I am going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do? He did not command himself to feel excited or passionate. He simply stated the truth of his duty and the work of being human. The feeling was irrelevant, the action was essential. Consider the common pattern of starting a new project with a burst of enthusiasm. The energy is high, the vision is clear, and progress feels effortless. But then, inevitably, the initial excitement fades. The work becomes difficult, the results slow, and the emotional fuel tank runs dry. This is the critical juncture where most endeavors falter. The person relying on motivation simply stops, waiting for the feeling to return. The Stoic practitioner, guided by discipline, acknowledges the absence of feeling and proceeds anyway. They show up not because they feel like it, but because the task aligns with their purpose. The act of showing up, especially when you least want to, is itself a strengthening of character. It is the practice of making your word to yourself more powerful than your passing mood. Is there one important task in your life that you only approach when you feel motivated? Perhaps it is a creative project, a fitness routine, or a learning goal. Notice how its progress is entirely tied to the unreliable rhythm of your enthusiasm. The Stoic invitation is to break that pattern with a simple act of commitment. Choose one such task and assign it a fixed, non-negotiable time in your day or week. The rule is simple: you perform the action at that time, whether you feel motivated or not. The goal is not a spectacular outcome in that single session, but the quiet victory of acting from principle rather than emotion. This is how you build a life not on the shifting sands of feeling, but on the solid ground of your own disciplined character. What is the usual substance of your conversations, and do they build up or tear down? Our daily exchanges form a powerful current, shaping our relationships and our own character with every word we choose to speak or hold back. The Stoics placed great importance on this, viewing our speech not as casual talk, but as a continuous exercise in virtue. Epictetus offered a simple yet profound rule for his students, that we should not speak unless we are sure our words are both true and beneficial. This creates a thoughtful filter for our conversational patterns, inviting us to move beyond the automatic rhythms of complaint and hearsay toward something far more meaningful. Consider the common pattern of office talk, The cue might be a quiet moment by the coffee machine, and the routine is sharing a piece of unconfirmed news about a colleague. The immediate reward is a brief sense of connection or social belonging, but the deeper cost is a gradual wearing away of trust and a reinforcement of a pattern that focuses on the shortcomings of others. With Stoic awareness, you can notice that cue. When the conversation turns toward hearsay, you have a conscious choice. You can exercise the virtue of restraint by simply staying quiet, choosing not to add your energy to the cycle. Or you can practice the virtue of fairness by gently guiding the dialogue toward a more helpful topic, perhaps asking a question about the project itself rather than the person. This is not about being morally superior, but about actively reshaping a conversational habit into one that aligns with your principles. For the next full day, I invite you to a quiet experiment in observation. Carry a small notebook or use a notes app and simply note how many of your conversations are primarily complaints, how many are neutral exchanges of information, and how many are genuinely uplifting or useful. You are not judging yourself, just gathering insight. Then, for each interaction, ask Epictetus 2 questions silently before you speak. Are these words true? Are they beneficial? This single day of mindful attention can reveal the hidden structure of your social world, showing you exactly where you can begin to build more purposeful and virtuous connections. The modern world is built on a cycle: desire, acquisition, temporary satisfaction, and renewed desire. We are taught to chase the next promotion, the newer device, the more stylish item, believing that this next thing will finally be the one that delivers lasting contentment. Yet the feeling is always fleeting, and the goalpost simply moves further away, leaving us on a treadmill of wanting. The Stoics identified this pattern as one of the primary traps of a life misled, a confusion between what is truly good and what is merely an external convenience. They saw that peace cannot be found in the accumulation of things we do not control, but only in the cultivation of a mind that finds sufficiency in what is already present. Seneca expressed this with piercing clarity when he wrote that true wealth is not the possession of many things, but the need for few. The goal is not to live in poverty, but to break the psychological chain that links your happiness to your next acquisition. Consider the modern ritual of online shopping when you feel a sense of boredom or restlessness. The emotional void is the cue. The routine is scrolling and clicking. The reward is the brief thrill of the purchase and the anticipation of its arrival. But the pattern is clear: the feeling soon fades, and the void returns, often now accompanied by a sense of clutter or financial strain. The Stoic practice is to insert a moment of conscious inquiry before the purchase. When you feel that pull, pause and hold the item in your digital cart for 24 hours. In that space, practice a simple want versus need reflection. Do I need this for my basic well-being and function, or do I want it to fill a temporary feeling? This is not about deprivation, but about clarity. It is the act of reclaiming your power from the cycle itself. The real acquisition is not the object, but the self-command you practice in that moment of pause. What 3 non-material things are you grateful for today that you typically overlook? The warmth of sunlight on your skin, the simple fact of having clean water to drink, the ability to read and learn. Listing these is not a sentimental exercise. It is an active recalibration of your attention, a deliberate redirecting of your focus from what you lack to the profound abundance that is already and always here. The feeling of helplessness is often a pattern of thought, not a reflection of reality. It is a mental habit of scanning your circumstances and only seeing the walls while remaining blind to the doors. This is precisely where Stoic wisdom offers its most profound liberation, reminding us that our true agency does not lie in commanding external events, but in our sovereign power to choose our response to them. Even when every outward path seems blocked, the inner path of your own judgment remains open. The philosopher Epictetus, born into a life of great limitation, understood this truth intimately. He taught that no one is truly master of another person, only of their own choices and actions. He said, "Freedom is secured not by the fulfilling of men's desires, but by the removal of desire." This points to a radical shift where freedom is found not in getting what you want from the world, but in mastering the wants themselves that make you feel confined. Centuries later, the psychotherapist Viktor Frankl, who lived through profound challenges, echoed this Stoic principle. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." This is the ultimate refutation of the helplessness pattern. Your attitude is a territory no external force can ever truly occupy without your consent. Consider the common feeling of being confined in a job. The pattern of helplessness might sound like this: "I have no options, I am completely stuck here." This story feels like an absolute truth. The Stoic reframe does not deny the difficulty of the situation, but it carefully examines it. It asks, what aspects of this experience are genuinely outside my control, like the company's decisions, the market, or the behavior of others? And then, what remains within my sphere of influence, your attitude toward your tasks, the quality of your effort, your commitment to learning, even your decision to quietly update your skills or network during your personal time. By shifting your focus from the immovable walls to the movable pieces you still command, you break the pattern. You move from a passive character in a story written for you to the author of your own response. Bring to mind one situation in your own life that currently evokes that heavy sense of helplessness. Now, take a moment and write down a single, honest answer to this question. What is one small aspect of this situation, even something seemingly insignificant, that I can control or influence today? It might be your internal narrative about it, choosing to see it as a challenge to build resilience. It could be one small action, like researching a single new skill for 10 minutes or having a calm, intentional conversation you have been avoiding. This act of writing is not a magic solution, but it is a deliberate act of reclaiming your own agency from the pattern that has been holding it captive. Impatience is the refusal to accept the pace of reality. It is a quiet rebellion against the natural timing of things, a demand that the world and everyone in it move according to our personal schedule. This internal struggle against the flow of events is a major disruptor of our peace, creating frustration where none needs to exist. The Stoics practiced a different way, a conscious alignment of their expectations with the world as it is, not as they wished it to be. They sought to move in harmony with the current of events, not exhaust themselves by swimming upstream. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius guided himself with this very principle, writing in his private journal, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." He is not advising passive resignation, but an active and heartfelt cooperation with the reality unfolding before him. The traffic jam, the delayed flight, the slow-moving line at the store, these are not personal insults. They are simply the way things are in this particular moment. To fight them is to fight reality itself. Consider the common pattern of road rage or the simmering frustration in a long queue. The external event is the slow pace of traffic or the number of people ahead of you. The internal pattern is the story of unfairness, the mental tally of wasted minutes, the mounting tension in your body. The Stoic practice is to intercept this pattern by reframing the waiting time. Instead of seeing it as stolen time, you can choose to see it as found time, an unexpected gift of a few minutes to simply be. You can use it to practice the virtue of observation, noticing the details of your surroundings, the play of light, the sounds you normally filter out. Or you can turn it into a moment for reflection, asking a simple Stoic question: is my frustration changing the situation in any meaningful way? the answer is almost always a clear no. By shifting your focus from demanding a faster reality to using the present reality constructively, you reclaim your calm. When was the last time you felt that familiar heat of impatience rise within you? Perhaps it was this very morning, standing in line for coffee or waiting for a web page to load. In that moment, what virtue was the situation inviting you to practice? Was it the patience to endure the delay without internal complaint, or the acceptance to release your attachment to a specific, hurried outcome? Identifying this single, practicable virtue transforms an irritating delay into a training ground for your character, a small but powerful opportunity to align your rhythm with the wider, more patient pace of the world itself. Your phone is a mirror reflecting your deepest habits of attention. What patterns does it show? Every notification, every scroll, every tap is a data point in the story of your day, revealing where your mind habitually travels when left to its own devices. The Stoic call for intentionality finds a critical modern application here, not in rejecting technology, but in reclaiming our agency over how we use it. This is about moving from passive consumption to mindful engagement, choosing digital actions that serve wisdom and connection over those that feed distraction and envy. The endless scroll is a perfect example of a modern pattern that runs contrary to Stoic principles. The cue is often a moment of transition or slight boredom. The routine is the mindless swipe upward, seeking a new stimulus. The reward is a fleeting hit of novelty that leaves no lasting satisfaction, only a subtle sense of time lost and attention fragmented. The Stoic practice is to interrupt this loop with a simple question before you even unlock your device. What is my intention for this interaction? Are you checking for a specific message from a loved one, looking up information for a project, or seeking a moment of genuine connection? Or are you simply avoiding a feeling or filling a space? Setting this clear intention transforms the action from a reflexive habit into a deliberate choice. This week, I invite you to a one-day audit of your own digital life. Do not judge the time spent, but simply observe its character. As you use your devices, keep a gentle mental note or make a simple list at day's end. Categorize your screen time into two simple columns: purposeful engagement and distraction. How much of your time was spent on activities that aligned with a clear intention, that added to your understanding or strengthened a real connection? And how much was spent in the automatic drift of distraction, scrolling through content that left no meaningful trace? This audit is not about creating guilt, but about gathering the clarity you need to begin consciously designing your digital world, ensuring your tools serve your growth rather than dictate your focus. The Stoics had a unique pattern for strengthening the mind. They regularly rehearsed the idea of change. This practice, known as Premeditatio Malorum, was not an exercise in pessimism, but a conscious training of their attention. It was a voluntary journey into a thoughtful mental space, undertaken to build a profound immunity to the fear and shock of actual adversity. By willingly visiting the idea of transition in their minds, they prepared their spirits against the unsettling effect of sudden shifts in life. This pattern transforms potential future surprises into familiar territory, robbing them of their power to disrupt your peace. Seneca was a master of this practice. He would deliberately set aside time to contemplate the possibility of his wealth shifting, his status evolving, and even his own well-being changing. He did this not to dwell in sadness, but to tame the twin forces of desire and fear. He wrote that we should remind ourselves that we love what is temporary, that we have entrusted ourselves to things which will move on. This was not a dark fixation, but a gentle recognition of reality, designed to make him love what he had all the more fiercely, without clinging to it with a desperate, fearful grip. The goal was to appreciate the present with clear eyes, fully aware that nothing in the external world is permanently ours to keep. You can introduce this pattern into your own life with a simple, brief exercise. Before your family arrives home today, pause for just a moment. Close your eyes and vividly imagine for a single minute what it would feel like if their daily presence was different, if their familiar rhythm was suddenly altered. Then open your eyes when you hear the key in the lock or see their face. Notice the genuine surge of warmth and appreciation that follows. The rehearsal of change makes the return to your present reality feel like a gift. Or consider your ability to work. Briefly imagine your professional situation shifting and the initial uncertainty that would bring. When you sit back down at your desk, see if the tasks before you feel different, perhaps less like burdens and more like opportunities you are privileged to have. This pattern is not about inviting fear, but about voluntarily facing it on your own terms to discover the deep gratitude that lies on the other side. Today, I invite you to a 2-minute rehearsal. Choose one thing you deeply value, perhaps your health, a cherished relationship, or your home. For 2 minutes, allow yourself to visualize its temporary absence. Picture the details of a day without it, then gently release the thought and return to your present moment. Pay close attention to the immediate feeling that washes over you. That surge of relief, that heightened awareness of what you have, that is the pattern doing its work. It is the conscious cultivation of gratitude, forged in the quiet fires of your own prepared mind. For a Stoic, life is a continuous curriculum and every event a potential lesson. This is the pattern of the lifelong student, an approach that transforms every single day into a dynamic classroom. The goal is not to accumulate facts, but to actively extract wisdom from the raw material of your own experience, especially from moments of friction and discomfort. This is a proactive pattern of constantly asking, "What can this teach me?" rather than passively accepting what happens. The Stoic teacher Epictetus, who himself lived a life of profound challenge, framed this mindset with powerful clarity. He taught that difficult circumstances are like a demanding instructor, revealing the very areas where we need to grow. He said, "Remember that not he who gives ill language or a blow insults, but the principle which represents these things as insulting." So when someone provokes you, know that it is your own opinion which provokes you. This shifts the entire dynamic. The person or event is no longer the central focus. The lesson your own reaction can teach you becomes the point of the encounter. Consider the common pattern of receiving feedback. The automatic, well-worn reaction is to feel defensive, to see the input as an attack on your character or ability. The story you might tell yourself is one of being misunderstood or unfairly judged. The Stoic student pattern interrupts this narrative. It asks you to see the feedback not as a verdict but as information. Before you dismiss it, you actively sift through it, looking for a single kernel of actionable truth. Even if 95% of the input feels misplaced, you search for the 5% that could help you improve. This is not about accepting unfairness, but about exercising the virtue of humility and the relentless pursuit of self-betterment. The person offering the feedback, regardless of their intent, becomes an unwitting teacher, holding up a mirror to an aspect of yourself you may have overlooked. What was the most recent difficult situation you faced, and what specific lesson about yourself or the world did it teach you? Perhaps it was a project that did not go as planned, revealing a need for more thorough preparation. Maybe it was a moment of frustration with a loved one, teaching you about the importance of patience and clearer communication. By asking this question, you actively engage the pattern of the Stoic student. You are no longer just a person to whom things happen. You are an active participant in your own education, forever enrolled in the most important school there is, the school of your own life. How do you speak to yourself in your mind after a mistake, with the harshness of a critic or the guidance of a wise teacher? This internal conversation is one of the most powerful patterns shaping our growth, a rhythm of self-reflection that can either hold us back or help us move forward. The Stoic approach offers a meaningful alternative to this cycle, a path of honest self-assessment that is clear without being unkind. It invites us to see our errors not as personal shortcomings, but as natural expressions of our shared human experience, as moments for learning rather than reasons for judgment. Marcus Aurelius consistently modeled this balance in his private writings, reminding himself to be understanding with others and gentle with himself, for we are all fellow beings sharing in the same capacity for reason and the same potential to err. He did not overlook his own imperfections, but he met them with a calm and thoughtful spirit, focusing on the chance to grow and bring his actions into alignment with his values. This is the heart of the Stoic pattern, thoughtful reflection without emotional turmoil. Consider the common experience of feeling frustrated after a small error at work, perhaps sending an email with a minor oversight or misplacing an important document. The automatic pattern might sound like a stern inner voice, suggesting you were not careful enough. This emotional reaction can cloud your perspective and does little to help you avoid the same situation later. The Stoic reframe shifts this pattern. You acknowledge the error with simple clarity. Yes, I made a mistake. Then you move directly to the helpful question, what can I learn from this to strengthen my approach? Perhaps the insight is to add a brief review before sending, or to create a specific place for essential items. The mistake is no longer a mark against your worth. It is one piece of insight in your continuous journey of personal growth. This week, I invite you to a simple writing exercise. Take a moment and write down one recent, small mistake that still stays in your thoughts. Now, beside it, write a Stoic response. This is not a justification, but a clear, compassionate, and forward-looking statement focused only on the lesson. How would a wise teacher, one who trusts in your ability to learn, frame that same event? This single act of reshaping your inner story is a practical step in shifting the old pattern and building a new one, where every misstep becomes a stepping stone on your path. Nature itself operates in cycles of activity and rest. Why should we be any different? The sun rises and sets, seasons turn, and even the most powerful storms give way to calm. Our own bodies follow this universal law with a heartbeat that is a constant rhythm of contraction and release. The Stoics called this living in accordance with nature, and it applies directly to how we approach our work and our recovery. They understood that to perform our duties with sustained excellence, we must engage in them with full focus and then consciously step back for necessary renewal. This is not a suggestion for laziness, but a principle for avoiding the slow drain of feeling worn down. It is the pattern of the artisan who sharpens their tools, or the athlete who knows that rest is part of the training. Seneca, in his letters, observed that even the mind must be given time to gather strength and recover its freshness after intense labor. He saw rest not as idleness, but as the essential counterpart to concentrated effort. Consider the modern pattern of working straight through lunch, hunched over a screen while barely tasting your food. The duty is being performed, but the rhythm is broken. There is no contraction and release, only a constant, draining tension. The Stoic alternative is to build deliberate pauses into the architecture of your day. This could be as simple as scheduling a short, mindful walk after 90 minutes of deep work. The goal of the walk is not to get somewhere, but to reset your focus. You leave your desk and for 10 minutes, you simply notice the feeling of the ground beneath your feet, the air on your skin, the movement of clouds or trees. You are not stopping work, you are practicing the other half of the natural cycle, the renewal that makes the work sustainable and better. Look back at your current week. Can you identify a healthy rhythm between intense focus and genuine rest, or does it feel like one long, flat line of obligation? For the coming day, plan one specific, non-negotiable period of rest. It does not need to be long. It could be 5 minutes of quiet sitting after a meeting, or a commitment to step away from all screens for the first 15 minutes of your evening. This single, scheduled pause is your active participation in the Stoic art of balance, a small but powerful way to align your daily rhythm with the wisdom of nature itself. The mind that is certain of everything is often closed to everything, including wisdom. This is the pattern of dogmatic thinking, a mental rigidity that treats opinions as unchangeable facts and sees the world in stark divisions of right and wrong. Stoicism, as a philosophy rooted in reason, offers a powerful antidote to this. It encourages us to hold our views lightly, to be active seekers of truth rather than defenders of a fixed position. The Stoic teacher Epictetus pointed directly to the core of this issue when he taught that it is impossible for a person to learn what they think they already know. Certainty, in this sense, becomes a wall that blocks the very path to understanding. When you are convinced your map of the world is complete and flawless, you stop looking at the actual territory, missing all the subtle details and new paths that reality continually reveals. Consider the common pattern of a heated discussion about a social or political topic. The automatic response is often to listen only for flaws in the other person's argument, preparing your counterattack while they are still speaking. The emotional reward is a feeling of righteous defense, but the cost is a reinforced pattern of isolation and intellectual stagnation. The Stoic practice is to consciously interrupt this loop. In your next difficult conversation, make a deliberate choice. Before you offer your next point, make it your goal to first restate the other person's position so accurately and fairly that they would agree you understand it. This single act forces your mind out of its defensive posture and into a space of genuine inquiry. You are not required to agree with them, but you are practicing the virtue of intellectual humility, creating a space where reason, not just reaction, can guide the exchange. What is one opinion you hold with deep conviction? Take a quiet moment and write it down. Then, with the curiosity of a scientist studying a fascinating phenomenon, list 3 coherent, reasonable arguments that a thoughtful person might use to disagree with your position. This is not an exercise in undermining your own beliefs, but in strengthening your mind's flexibility and your commitment to truth over the comfort of certainty. Gratitude is not a passive feeling, it is an active pattern of attention we can choose to practice. This is the Stoic art of recognizing the good that is already woven into the fabric of our existence, a deliberate shift in focus from what is missing to what is present and functioning. It is a form of pattern recognition, training your mind to notice the countless things that support you, from the steady beat of your heart to the simple chair you sit upon. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius regularly retreated into this practice, writing in his private journal that we can find peace by remembering the basic gifts of our nature, our capacity to perceive, to understand, and to act with purpose. He was not ignoring life's difficulties, but building an inner fortress of appreciation that no external circumstance could easily shake. A powerful way to weave this pattern into your own life is with a nightly gratitude review. In the final quiet moments before sleep, list 3 specific things from your day. The first could be a simple pleasure, the warmth of a morning beverage. The second might be a functional wonder you typically overlook, like the technology that allows you to learn and connect. And the third, most Stoic of all, could be a challenge that taught you a small but valuable lesson, reframing a moment of friction as a teacher in disguise. This ritual does not deny hardship, but it actively balances your inner ledger, ensuring that your attention is not monopolized by lack. So right now, wherever you are, pause for a single breath and mentally thank 3 things in your immediate environment. The device allowing you to hear these words, the light illuminating your space, the very air you are breathing. This small act is not trivial. It is the conscious cultivation of a pattern that, over time, can fundamentally reshape your entire experience of being alive. The final stage of pattern recognition is when the observation itself fades and the wise action simply flows. This is the point where conscious effort gives way to embodied wisdom, where the principles you have been practicing become as natural and automatic as breathing. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus spoke of virtue not as a theory to be debated, but as a settled state of character, a way of being that operates from the inside out. He taught that just as a craftsman does not need to consciously recall every rule of his trade while his hands are skillfully at work, a person of developed character does not need to laboriously recall philosophical principles in the moment of challenge. The response arises from a deep, integrated understanding, not from a frantic search through a mental rulebook. Imagine a situation that once reliably stirred a strong reaction within you. In the beginning, you learned to observe the pattern, to notice the first spark of frustration and create a space before reacting. With consistent practice, that space became wider, allowing you to consciously choose a calmer path. But in the final stage, something different happens. The trigger occurs, but the old story of frustration simply does not arise. Calm is not a choice you have to make in that moment. It is the default setting. The pattern of strong emotion is so well known to you, so thoroughly mapped and understood, that it has lost its power to disrupt your inner world. Your character has been rewired. The work has moved from your conscious mind into the very fabric of your being. If you could fast forward 1 year from today, what single Stoic pattern would you most want to have fully integrated into your character? Is it the pattern of meeting unfairness with understanding rather than resentment, the pattern of beginning difficult tasks without hesitation, or the pattern of receiving both praise and blame with the same steady inner calm? Envision that version of yourself not as someone who has to try, but as someone who simply is. This embodied wisdom is the ultimate destination of your journey, the quiet reward for every moment you chose to pay attention. This entire journey of self-discovery rests on a simple but profound shift from being carried by your patterns to consciously directing them. Stoic pattern recognition is not an exercise in self-criticism. It is a practice of empowered self-awareness, a way to see the inner design of your life so you can participate in its creation. We began by learning to observe our thoughts as passing weather, creating that vital space between an impulse and our action. We mapped our triggers, distinguishing between what we control and what we do not, and we practiced interrupting the swift, automatic judgments that so often dictate our days. We explored how to redesign our habits, realign our desires, and reframe obstacles as training grounds. Throughout, the aim has been the same: to architect a life centered not on fleeting emotion, but on enduring virtue. The ultimate freedom this brings was perfectly captured by Epictetus. He said, "Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it." This points to the core of our work, managing the deep currents of wanting and avoiding that run beneath our choices. True liberty is found not in getting everything you wish for, but in mastering the wishes themselves. Your invitation now is to start small, with absolute simplicity. Look back over our time together and choose just one pattern to observe for the next 7 days. Perhaps it is the first judgment that arises with a minor annoyance, or the automatic reach for your phone, or the subtle pull of comparison. Your only task is to notice it with gentle curiosity, without any pressure to change it immediately. This single act of attention is how every great journey of growth begins. In the comments below, I would be deeply interested to hear which pattern you choose to observe and what you discover. Sharing our experiences builds a community of learners, each of us supporting the other on this path. If you found this practical Stoic wisdom helpful, subscribing ensures our conversations continue. Remember, the goal is not perfection, but progress, one observed pattern, one conscious breath, one small step toward a life of purpose and peace.